Michelle Prince, founder and CEO of Performance Publishing Group, making a difference one story at a time. We'll be shining the light on successful founders, entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders that are getting results and making a difference. We'll talk about how they built their businesses, are creating movements, and leveraging the power of authority in their own lives. Be sure to stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Power of Authority Spotlight. This is your host, Michelle Prince, and I'm excited to introduce you to our guest today. It's Dr. Kathy Bloomgarden, who is the CEO of Reuter Finn, Inc., and it's one of the largest independent public relation and creative agencies in the world, founded by PR industry pioneer and legend David Finn. They have offices throughout the United States, UK, and all over the world, and the accolades and awards they've received is so impressive. But Kathy was also named the 2001 CEO of the Year and Top Women in PR Changemaker. She's helping CEOs garner recognition for authentic, visionary leadership for her work with companies from major multinationals to promising startups to help them articulate and gain recognition for their brands. She is also known for early on as having the foresight to build one of the first in-house PR agency healthcare practices, and was at the helm when Reuter Finn became one of the first Western PR agencies to expand its global footprint into China, helping its Asia operations prosper with her fluency in Chinese. Reuter Finn is now has 10 offices across the region. I could go on and on. Her bio is very impressive, but I'd rather just bring her onto the show. So welcome, Kathy.
Michelle, it's so great to meet you and to be having this conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. And thank you so much for that very kind introduction.
I know we all have a bio, but yours has a lot there. And I really wanted to make sure we talked about that. So Reuter Finn, obviously a very well-known PR agency throughout the world, but tell us a little bit more about what you do. What do you do to help other businesses and business owners?
Well, it's a moment in time when communications has become a lot more important. You know, it wasn't always like that. There are many times when people would be growing their business and large companies were making acquisitions. They were looking at their marketing budgets, and sometimes they bring in the PR folks to, give them a little bit of good image. And that was what PR was all about. And now PR has a seat at the table, which I think is so important. There's been a very dramatic shift, and communication has become so important because we're living in a time of great uncertainty. So who would have thought that, we would be 2 years plus, going on 3 years at home because of a worldwide global pandemic. I remember back when, my team was saying we need to close the office, and I thought, okay, 2 weeks. I left my shoes under my desk. I left all my papers on my desk, and 2 years later, I was still looking for those same shoes. So, I think no one expected that we would be going through this kind of uncertainty, which then led to economic uncertainty and inflation, which we're seeing now, and supply chain shortages. Anybody who wanted to buy a refrigerator or whatever, had many months of wait. And now we have the uncertainties of tensions between geopolitical tensions with Russia and Ukraine. So, we are living in a very uncertain period, and the unease, the mental health issues, we've all seen have come up, communicating with each other, having social bonds after many months of social isolation makes communication a really important foundation for almost everything that we do, whether it's in the corporate world, whether it's in our communities. And we see that a lot of community unrest. So there's so many decisions that are really underpinned by strong communications that being in this field has really greater meaning than it did in any other point in time.
Without a doubt. And I mean, with the uncertainty, there's so many things going on that nobody would have expected. But to your point, though, this is when we pivot, right? This is when we have to look for new alternatives. We have to look for new ways of doing things, which I think these last 2.5 years, I've seen more creativity, even in my own business, right? Even in things that maybe operated a certain way for so long, people are starting to rethink, well, maybe there is a better way. And so if there's any silver lining to all of those things that have happened, I would say that's the creativity has kind of come to the surface a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. It's, we always say out of the ashes, grows great opportunities, right? And I think that what we saw with the mRNA vaccines is, a great symbol of, incredible collaboration and incredible innovation and accelerated pace, everyone coming together to find solutions. So it's not just being creative and coming up with new ideas, it's actually problem solving with new behaviors and new ways of actually making sure that we're improving both our daily lives and the opportunities ahead. And so I think that the creativity and innovation you talk about really needs people to work as teams in a new way. So I'm intrigued by your Power of Authority podcast title. So what does power of authority mean in this world that we're living in today? It's changed. I think what's really important coming out of where we are is actually a new leadership style. And that's something that I'm working with quite a lot of companies on, because there has been a rather dramatic shift in terms of how we lead, what people expect, how we address the great resignation, if you want to call it that, with the great reset.
Right.
So I do think that it's a wonderful topic for conversation. And one of the reasons I was looking forward to talking with you today, Michelle, is just to really explore this idea of what is the new power of authority? Where does it come from and what does it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I see authority is, it's the opportunity to make a bigger impact to more people. When you have authority, people, which means you have a platform in some way that people not only are, so many people are trying to be heard, especially through social media and all that. But when you have authority, people want to hear what you have to say, and those are the people that tend to have the biggest impact, personally and professionally. And so, and I love what you do with PR, because I think that there is such an opportunity there, and communication, how you get yourself out there, but it all comes back to how are you serving other people? And I think even corporations are starting to see that it's not just about the brand, right? It's not just the company. It's who's at the helm of that company, and what are they doing and how did they get there? I always say, I think people want to know the backstory more than they want to know how successful you are. They want to know, well, how did you get there? Which is really my next question for you, because you are CEO and, and 2021 CEO of the year. Very, very impressive. But how did you get there, especially a woman in leadership? And what was your journey?
Yeah, so I think, of course, when you start out, you have to prove yourself. I started in working at Ritter Finn as a freelancer doing computer programming. I was getting my doctorate in political science at Columbia, which was very analytics driven. So we had a lot of statistics and background in that. And we had a research operation at Ritter Finn. So I was working on the programming aspects. And then raised my hand because I wanted to start the healthcare group, and I wanted to I was married to a doctor, so I was immersed in the world of healthcare and medicine. And I wanted to, based on my language training, I wanted to start offices in China, which everybody thought was, probably the dumbest idea they'd ever heard of. So everyone was like really happy to send me off to do both healthcare and Chinese, office opening, which interested, nobody at all. So
Yeah.
we started that, and we're able to build actually what is today the largest multinational agency, independent agency in China, which is Ritter Finn's offices. We have several hundred people there. And I really, our teams are oriented around being very global minded. So we don't have silos. We work so hard to make sure that we never have silos, and we have wonderful clients we work on together so that we can look at problems and find solutions that are, coming from with perspectives from many different angles. Because I think one of the things that's really important is never to get yourself stuck in your rut of always doing the same thing over and over again. My dad had this really funny saying where he would say, when you're writing a PR program for someone, I never want to see one jelly bean from each jar, meaning we would do media on this and we have a press conference over here and then we write a press release over here. You always have to push the envelope and always be more creative and always think about how do I really affect change? How do I really, as you were saying, Michelle, earlier about your power of authority, perspective, it's about behavior change. It's about finding solutions. It's about making a real impact. It's not just about getting airtime or,
Right.
having more share of voice. It's about making a difference.
What are you seeing working right now with media, with PR? I mean, as you said, because things have shifted and changed so much. What do you find is working with some of your clients?
Yeah, so I think one of the big changes that people have to realize that we live in a 360 information environment. And that means when people, who used to say, I need an article in the Wall Street Journal. And then I turn to them and say, okay, did you open the paper today or did you read it on your phone? And almost universally, people say, oh, yes, my kids, my wife, myself, we picked up our phones, we had things pushed to us. I said, because that's the way we have to look at information. It's yes, it's, news outlets, it's broadcast, it's social media channels, it's owned content that you post on LinkedIn. And, I remind them if Larry Fink or Ray Dalio want to put out, a very important communication about something new that they're thinking about, they will often do it on LinkedIn. So I think that, this is something that is not just nice to think about after you've thought about everything else. It's a fundamental aspect of the complete communication approach that one has to take. And we have to be careful about the misinformation that's out there. We all know that, we know that there's so much that's just false and untrue, and that, by search engines and other advertising tactics, you tend to have pushed to you the same kinds of information over and over again. So we've come up with an approach which we call truth vector, which actually helps us to identify misinformation and the viral potential of that misinformation, which could potentially overwhelm the material and information that people are getting. So we have to be vigilant, and we have to look at information flow in a different way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Lots of, with so many changes. I love that. And so those are the kind of things that you're helping companies to do. What
Mhm.
about for you personally as CEO? Are you trying to build your brand as well?
Well, so one thing that is very important to me is to actually always be looking at new and emerging tools. And, we tell our clients, and just as you just said, Michelle, it's a time when we're all experimenting and we're all using, new kinds of tools in business. And I always say to my colleagues and my management team, and for us too, we have to put the same lens on ourselves that we do with our clients, and we have to change what we do as well. So we started a tech lab, and the head of our tech lab is a just really brilliant, wonderful person who brings new tech tools that are coming out and emerging to our discussions, our weekly management discussions. So we're always aware of what might be useful for us to use as a tool, and force ourselves to think differently about how we actually communicate and how we bring new communication ideas. And I love the story, a perfect story of this the grandmother who went on TikTok to tell her stories about, I think it was the Holocaust experiences that she had had. I think she was in her 90s, if I recall. And, I thought, TikTok, how many of our clients are thinking of using a TikTok tool as a way to address and capture audience attention? And of course, that's the kind of thing that makes, so much sense for us to bring forward. And I always say to clients, if I push you too far, if you haven't told me no, I haven't brought enough good ideas to you.
Yeah.
So I have to go that far. And then you have to say, no, that's too much for me. And then I would have known that I would spark your thinking and make you think out of the box and make you think differently. And that's, something that we're really trying hard at Rooterfin to do, is to really be sort of technology advanced, innovation advanced, think about what's next.
Yes. And you have to be, two steps ahead of the game. I mean, if you think back to remember when even Facebook came out, what, 10, 12, 15 years ago, I don't even know. So many people saying, who would ever put their pictures out on the internet of their family and all of this stuff? And now look where we are today. It's almost like if you're not out there doing something like that in some social platform, it's like, well, what's wrong with you? Yeah. So to that point, yeah, TikTok may be uncomfortable for some right now, but fast forward another couple of years, it may be, what everybody's doing. So
yes,
that's why we need PR firms, right? Well, we're going to wrap this up, but I do want to know, so you and I share our love for communications. That was my major when in college. And I know you have studied a lot of language and all that. What is some advice you would give to a leader, founder, business owner, entrepreneur, somebody who really that's not their strength? What would you tell them to help improve their communication?
Well, there's a couple of things that I learned working with great leaders. I've had the opportunity to work with a number of amazing CEOs, and CEOs in the pharma industry taught me one thing, which is that failure is important. So you have to push and you have to be really confident, because every success is built on a failure somewhere. And I think that's really important lesson to remember, because if you don't try and you don't really have confidence and boldness, then you really won't ultimately be successful. So don't be afraid to fail. And the second thing I learned from a really wonderful CEO, John Chambers, who's former CEO of and chairman of Cisco, he taught me, never go to where the puck has been. Always look to, don't compete against your competitors. You compete against a market transition. Know where the market is changing. So, all of us, we look around and we say, oh, what is our competitor doing? How is it that we can, really improve and be competitive against those who are, in our field? That's wrong. So we need to really think about where things are evolving to in order to really be successful. So those are the two lessons that I really keep with me. When I say three, be confident, success is built on failure, and don't compete against your competitors, compete against market transitions.
That is good. That is really good. I love that. And the don't be afraid to fail, right? How many of us want to fail, but truly some of the best ideas come out as a result of that. So, well, Kathy, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I do try to be as active as I can, given, I have a reverse mentor. I just want you to know that, one of my wonderful, brilliant young team members helps me stay on top of all of the social channels. So you can find me easily through LinkedIn and through Twitter, and of course on the Rudderfin website.
I love it. Yes, I'm the same way. I need help in that area big time. Well, Kathy, thank you again for joining us. Really enjoyed the conversation, and excited to see where things change and evolve and grow for you, for the company, and also for PR and communications in general.
Well, thank you, Michelle, and thank you for this wonderful podcast. I love your title and your idea. So I really appreciate having the dialogue today.
Thank you. All right, everyone, that's it for the Power of Authority Spotlight. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening to the Power of Authority Spotlight. If you are a successful founder, entrepreneur, business owner, or leader that's getting results and making a difference, and you'd like to be on this program, please visit performancepublishinggroup.com/podcast to apply. That's performancepublishinggroup.com/podcast. Also, if you got something out of this interview, please share this episode. Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show, and include the hashtag #ThePowerOfAuthoritySpotlight. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content, so make sure you don't miss any episodes by subscribing. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our websites, performancepublishinggroup.com or michelleprince.com, and follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.